The alarm screamed through the corridors of Earth Defense Station Alpha, like a banshee in the void. Admiral Sarah Chen's coffee mug shattered against the floor as she bolted upright, the bitter liquid spreading across the pristine white tiles of her quarters. "Admiral," the voice of her aide, Lieutenant Rodriguez, crackled through the comm system. "You need to see this. Now." Sarah's bare feet hit the cold metal floor as she grabbed her uniform jacket. In her 30 years of service, she'd never heard Rodriguez sound this shaken. The man had faced down Martian raiders and asteroid pirates, without breaking a sweat. The bridge buzzed with frantic energy when she arrived. Officers hunched over glowing displays, their faces painted blue by the screens. But every eye turned to the massive holographic projection dominating the center of the room. A ship hung there in three-dimensional light. But calling it a ship was like calling the sun a campfire. The vessel stretched over 20 kilometers from bow to stern, its crystalline hull reflecting starlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Organic curves merged with geometric perfection in ways that defied human understanding of engineering. It pulsed with an inner light that seemed almost alive. "When did it arrive?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her stomach. 17 minutes ago, Rodriguez replied, consulting his tablet. No energy signature on approach, no gravitational disturbance. It just appeared, right at the edge of our solar system. Sarah nodded slowly. Humanity had been alone. In the cosmos for over 2 centuries of space exploration, they'd found dead worlds, ancient ruins, and plenty of empty space, but never another living civilization. Until now. Have they made contact? Before Rodriguez could answer, every screen on the bridge flickered. The emergency lighting dimmed. Even, the air recyclers seemed to pause. Then impossibly a voice filled the bridge, not through the speakers but somehow resonating inside their minds. Species designation, human. Planet designation, Earth. Your presence is required before the Galactic Council. Compliance is not optional. The words carried weight beyond their meaning. Sarah felt them pressing against her thoughts like a physical force. Around her, several officers stumbled, clutching their heads. "Required for what?" Sarah called out, addressing the empty air. The response came immediately, tinged with what might have been amusement. "Your species has reached the threshold. The Council will determine your fate. Prepare 1 representative. Transport will commence in 72 of your hours." The presence vanished as suddenly as it had come. The normal hum of ship systems resumed, but the silence among the crew stretched like a held breath. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Patel spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm detecting similar signals across all inhabited systems. Mars, the Jupiter colonies, even the research stations at Alpha Centauri. Everyone received the same message." Sarah stared at the alien ship on the display. Humanity's greatest moment, and potentially their last. After 2 centuries of believing they were alone, they'd just learned they were not only part of a larger community, they were being judged by it. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," she ordered. "Priority Alpha. And find me our best xenolinguist, physicist, and diplomat. Looks like we're going to need them." As her crew scattered to their tasks, Sarah remained fixed on the impossible ship. In 72 hours, someone would board that vessel and speak for all of humanity. The weight of 6 billion lives would rest on that conversation. What she didn't know was that the Council had already made up their minds. Chapter 2. The chosen Dr. Elena Vasquez had been enjoying the first vacation she'd taken in 5 years when the world changed. The remote cabin in the Canadian Rockies had no news feeds, no quantum communicators, just blessed silence and the whisper of wind through pine trees. That silence shattered when a military transport screamed overhead, landing in the meadow behind. Her cabin with enough force to shake snow from the branches. Now she sat in the most secure briefing room on Earth, still wearing her hiking boots and wondering how her expertise in xenobiology had suddenly become the most important job in human history. "Dr. Vasquez," General Morrison's voice cut through her thoughts. "Your psychological profile indicates you're our best candidate for first contact." Elena looked around the table at the other faces, Admiral Chen appeared via hologram from her station, looking as if she hadn't slept since the contact. Director Yamamoto from the diplomatic corps sat rigid with tension. Dr. Kessler, humanity's foremost theoretical physicist, kept muttering equations under his breath. With respect, General, Elena said, I study extinct alien life forms, dead bacteria and fossilized microorganisms. I've never met a living alien, much less an entire galactic government. Which is exactly why you're perfect, Chen interjected. You understand alien life without preconceptions about how it should behave. Plus, your work on the Martian artifacts shows you can think beyond human limitations. Elena's stomach clenched. The Martian artifacts, ancient structures found buried beneath the polar ice caps. Her analysis had revealed technology so advanced it bordered on the incomprehensible. If those builders were still out there. There's something else, Morrison continued. We've detected energy patterns around the alien ship that match the Martian artifacts. Dr. Vasquez, you may be the only human who's already studied their technology. The weight of that revelation settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Elena had spent 3 years trying to understand the Martian ruins, barely scratching the surface of their complexity. If the same beings were now summoning humanity, what exactly am I supposed to do at this council? She asked. Director Yamamoto leaned forward. From what we can determine, this is some kind of evaluation. Species that reach a certain level of development are brought before the council for judgment. We don't know the criteria, but the implications are clear. Pass and humanity joins the galactic community, Chen added. Fail. She didn't need to finish. Elena could see it in their faces. Extinction was on the table. When do I leave? 6 hours, Morrison replied. The alien ship will rendezvous with the International Space Station. From there, you'll transfer to their vessel. Elena nodded slowly, her mind already racing with questions. What would they expect from humanity? What tests would they pose? And most importantly, what had happened to other species that had failed? There's one more thing, Chen said quietly. We've been monitoring deep space communications since the contact. There's a lot of chatter out there, Elena. Dozens of civilizations discussing Earth's arrival at the Council. From what we can translate, they're not optimistic about our chances. The room fell silent. Elena stared at her hands, thinking of all the life on Earth, the cities full of families, the children playing in parks, the vast diversity of creatures that called their world home. All of it depending on her ability to convince alien judges that humanity deserved to exist. I'll need access to all our data on the Martian artifacts, she said finally. And I want a full briefing on everything we know about galactic civilization. If I'm going to speak for humanity, I need to understand what I'm walking into. As the meeting dissolved into frantic preparation, Elena wondered if anyone had ever felt the weight of an entire species on their shoulders. She was about to find, outside, the alien ship waited in the darkness between stars, patient as death itself. Chapter 3. The Council Chamber. The interior of the alien vessel defied every assumption Elena had made about space travel. No sterile corridors or cramped compartments. Instead, she walked through what felt like a living forest. Crystalline trees stretched toward a ceiling that showed not metal plating, but an open sky filled with unfamiliar constellations. Her escort moved beside her without making a sound. The being stood nearly 3 meters tall, with elongated limbs and skin that shifted color like oil on water. When it spoke, the words formed directly in her mind. The Council awaits. Elena Vasquez of Earth. You know my name? We know much about your species. Perhaps more than you know about yourselves. That answer sent a chill down Elena's spine. But before she could respond, they emerged into a vast, circular chamber. The sight stole her breath away. Beings from across the galaxy sat, in tiered seating that rose like an amphitheater. Some were humanoid, others so alien that Elena's mind struggled to process their forms. Crystalline entities that sang in colors, gaseous beings contained within force fields, creatures that seemed to exist partially in dimensions she couldn't perceive. But it was the empty seats that truly caught her attention. hundreds of them scattered throughout the chamber like missing teeth in a skull. The failed, her escort whispered in her mind. Species that did not meet the standards of galactic civilization. Elena's throat went dry. What happened to them? They were discontinued. At the center of the chamber stood a simple platform. Elena realized with growing dread that it was meant for her. Beings of the Council, a voice resonated through the space, speaking in harmonics that bypassed the ears entirely. We gather to evaluate the species known as human from the world called Earth. Elena stepped onto the platform, acutely aware of thousands of alien eyes studying her. The weight of their attention felt like standing under a crushing waterfall. State your case, representative of humanity, the voice continued. Why should your species be permitted to continue? Elena had prepared for this moment, rehearsing arguments about human potential, their capacity for growth, their artistic achievements. But standing here, surrounded by beings whose civilizations spanned millions of years, those words felt hollow. Instead, she found herself thinking about the Martian artifacts. Honored Council, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. Before I speak for my species, I must ask about yours. The ruins we found on Mars, they belong to one of you, don't they? A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. Her escort's skin shifted to deep purple. The architects, someone whispered from the tiers above. She speaks of the architects. The architects were our greatest achievement, the central voice replied, and Elena caught something like sadness in its tone. They transcended physical form, becoming beings of pure thought and energy. They were to be our gift to the universe, perfect beings who would guide lesser species to enlightenment. What happened to them? They chose to hide, to withdraw from the galaxy and lose themselves in contemplation. Their great works lie abandoned while the universe struggles without their guidance. Elena felt pieces clicking together in her mind. The Martian artifacts, they're not ruins, they're an invitation. The silence in the chamber was absolute. The architects left those structures as messages, Elena continued, her confidence growing. Not just on Mars, but throughout the galaxy. They're waiting for someone to prove worthy of their knowledge. Someone who can understand their work and carry it forward. Many species have studied architect artifacts, a new voice interjected. Crystalline and sharp. None have succeeded in activation. Elena smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. That's because they're not looking for technological understanding. They're looking for something else. She reached into her jacket and withdrew. A small device, a quantum scanner she'd modified during her years studying the Martian ruins. With trembling fingers, she activated it. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every architect artifact in the chamber, and Elena now realized there were dozens incorporated into the very structure of the council chamber itself, blazed to life with golden light. Gasps and harmonic cries echoed from the assembled beings. Several rose from their seats in alarm. Impossible, the central voice breathed. The architects weren't looking for the most advanced species, Elena explained as the light pulsed around her. They were looking for the most curious, the most determined to understand rather than simply use. Humanity may not be the oldest or the strongest species in the galaxy, but we never stop asking, why? The chamber fell silent, except for the humming of the activated artifacts. Elena could feel the attention of the council focused on her with laser intensity. Our species has flaws, she continued. We fight among ourselves. We make mistakes. We're still learning, but we never stop trying to understand the universe around us. Even when it seems impossible, even when others tell us we're not ready, she gestured to the glowing artifacts. The architects didn't abandon the galaxy. They're waiting for someone who approaches their gifts with the right spirit, not conquest or power, but pure curiosity and the desire to learn. The central voice spoke again, but now Elena heard respect in its harmonics. You would claim humanity as the inheritors of architect knowledge? I would claim humanity as students, Elena replied, ready to learn not just from the architects, but from all of you, ready to ask questions that haven't been asked before, and find answers that benefit everyone. A long moment passed. Then one by one the beings of the council began to stand. But Elena couldn't shake the feeling that her real test was only beginning. Chapter 4. The Price of Acceptance. The council's decision was unanimous, but Elena quickly learned that acceptance came with conditions she hadn't expected. The architect artifacts will respond only to you, the being Elena had come to know as High Counselor Zephys explained. Its form shifted between states of matter as it spoke, sometimes solid, sometimes gaseous, always beautiful and slightly terrifying. This presents a unique situation. Elena stood in a smaller chamber adjacent to the Great Council Hall, surrounded by representatives from a dozen major galactic civilizations. The excitement in the room was palpable, but it carried an undercurrent of tension that made her skin crawl. "What kind of situation?" she asked. "For 3 million years the architect knowledge has been locked away," replied a crystalline being whose voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Entire civilizations have risen and fallen trying to unlock their secrets, technologies that could reshape reality itself, trapped in devices we can observe but not activate. Until now," added another council member, this one resembling a massive spider made of living metal. "Your species has provided the key we have sought for eons." Elena felt the trap closing around her even before the High Counselor spoke again. "Humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council," Zephys announced, "with one condition. Dr. Vasquez must remain here, working with our greatest minds to unlock the architect legacy. The knowledge gained will be shared among all council species, and if I refuse?" The silence stretched like a taut wire. Finally, Zephys spoke with something that might have been regret. "Then humanity returns to Earth. The quarantine barriers are reinstated. Your species continues its existence in isolation, unaware that the galaxy exists around them. Not extinction," Elena said slowly, "but not freedom either. The Council has debated this for cycles," the crystalline being admitted. "Some argued that any species capable of activating architect technology deserved immediate full privileges. Others claimed that humanity was too young, too volatile to be trusted with such power. This represents a compromise," Zephys continued. "Humanity gains access to galactic civilization gradually, while Dr. Vasquez works to unlock technologies that could benefit all species. When sufficient progress has been made, full privileges will be granted." Elena closed her eyes, thinking of Earth, of her sister's children, of the colleagues who had become her chosen family, of the small cabin in the mountains where she'd planned to spend her retirement. All of it slipping away like water through her fingers. "How long?" she whispered. "The architects left 47 major artifacts scattered across the galaxy," the spider being replied. "Conservative estimates suggest 20 to 30 years to unlock them all. Optimistic projections, perhaps 15 years. Minimum." Elena would be nearly 70 when she returned to Earth, assuming she lived that long. The weight of the decision pressed down on her like a physical force. "I need to speak with my people," she said finally. The holographic connection to Earth took several minutes to establish. When the image stabilized, Elena found herself looking at the faces of everyone who mattered in her life. General Morrison, Admiral Chen, her research team, even her sister Maria, who had been brought in from civilian life. "Elena?" Maria's voice cracked across the connection. "Are you all right? The reports we're getting are—" "I'm fine," Elena lied. "But we need to talk about what comes next." She explained the Council's offer as clearly as she could, watching their faces change as the implications sank in. When she finished, the silence stretched uncomfortably long. "It's not really a choice, is it?" Admiral Chen said finally. "Accept their terms, or humanity remains trapped in our solar system forever." "There's another option," General Morrison interjected. His jaw set in the stubborn line Elena remembered from their briefings. "We tell them no, and find our own way to the stars. Humanity doesn't need their permission to expand." "Against technology that's millions of years ahead of ours?" Dr. Kessler's voice came through clearly despite the vast distance. "James, they could sterilize our entire system without breathing hard. This isn't a negotiation. It's barely even A choice. Elena watched her sister's face crumple as the reality set in. Maria had lost her husband 3 years ago. Elena was all the family she had left. Elena, Maria whispered, you can't. There has to be another way. If there is, I don't see it, Elena replied, though every word felt like swallowing broken glass. But maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. My whole career has been about understanding alien civilizations. This is just the ultimate research project. She was trying to convince herself as much as them, and everyone in the room knew it. What about oversight? Admiral Chen asked suddenly. How do we know they'll keep their word? How do we know they won't just use you to unlock this technology, and then dispose of both you and Earth? It was a good question. One Elena had been wrestling with since the offer was made. I've been thinking about that, she said. The architect artifacts only respond to me, but they respond when I'm curious, when I'm genuinely trying to understand rather than just use. If the Council tries to force me or manipulate me, the artifacts will go dark again. They need my willing. Cooperation. That's a thin protection, Morrison grumbled. It's what we have, Elena replied. And honestly, after seeing this place, I think most of the Council members are genuinely interested in the knowledge for its own sake. The architects were apparently the closest thing to gods the galaxy has ever seen. Their technology could solve problems these civilizations have been struggling with for millions of years. The conversation continued for another hour, but Elena could see the inevitable conclusion in their faces. There really wasn't a choice. Not if humanity wanted any hope of joining the larger galactic community. Finally, her sister spoke up. If you do this, Elena, promise me you'll come back. Promise me you won't get so lost in alien mysteries that you forget about home. Elena smiled. Tears she hadn't realized were falling, making tracks down her cheeks. I promise, Maria. 15 years, maybe 20, and then I'm coming home to spend my retirement complaining about the weather and spoiling your grandchildren. The connection ended, leaving Elena alone with her decision. She returned to the council chamber to find the representatives still waiting, patient as stones. I accept your terms, she said simply. High Counselor Zephas's form solidified into something almost human-like, a gesture Elena was beginning to recognize as respect. The galaxy welcomes humanity, it said formally. And we welcome you, Elena. Vasquez, as the first human scholar of the architects. Your work begins immediately. As Elena was led from the chamber, she caught a glimpse of Earth through one of the massive viewing portals, a small blue marble against the vast darkness, home to everyone she'd ever loved. She pressed her hand against the transparent surface and whispered a promise to the darkness. I'll unlock their secrets. All of them. And then I'm coming home. Behind her, the first architect device hummed to life in her presence, ready to reveal mysteries that had been waiting 3 million years for the right student to ask the right questions. The real work was about to begin. Epilogue. The Long Road Home. 5 years later, Elena stood before the 20th architect artifact she'd successfully activated, watching in wonder as it transformed from dormant crystal into a flowering garden of pure energy. Around her, the greatest minds in the galaxy took notes, recorded measurements, and tried to comprehend technologies that redefined the possible. The artifact, found in the ruins of a dead world at the galaxy's edge, had taken her 3 months to understand. Not because the technology was particularly complex, but because the architects had embedded it with emotional resonance. It only activated when the user felt genuine wonder at the beauty of mathematical harmony. Remarkable, breathed Dr. Kellyan, a gaseous being from the Andromeda spiral, who had become Elena's closest collaborator. This device appears to convert quantum fluctuations directly into organized matter. The energy requirements should be enormous, yet it's drawing power from the user's emotional state, Elena finished. The architects weren't just advanced. They understood that consciousness and reality are more connected than we ever imagined. Around them, the activated artifact began to sing, harmonics that touched the mind directly and spoke of mathematical relationships so beautiful they brought tears to Elena's eyes. Several of the alien observers stepped back in alarm, but Elena moved closer. "It's not just showing us technology," she murmured. "It's teaching us a new way to think about the universe itself." In the 5 years since accepting the Council's bargain, Elena had unlocked technologies that had revolutionized galactic civilization. Faster-than-light communication that worked through quantum entanglement, terraforming devices that could make dead worlds bloom with life, medical technologies that could heal injuries by convincing matter to remember its healthy state. But with each discovery, Elena understood more clearly that the architects hadn't been interested in creating tools. They'd been trying to teach a lesson about the nature of reality itself. "Dr. Vasquez," came a familiar harmonic voice. High Counselor Zephys materialized beside her, its form more stable than Elena remembered from their first meeting. "Your sister has sent another message." Elena smiled. Maria's weekly messages had become the highlight of her existence. Filled with news from Earth and increasingly frequent mentions of grandchildren Elena had never met. Her nephew had graduated from university with a degree in xenoarchaeology, inspired by his aunt's work. Her niece was learning to pilot spacecraft, dreaming of the day humans would be allowed to travel freely among the stars. "How long until that day comes?" Elena asked, voicing the question that haunted her dreams. "Current projections suggest 12 more artifacts," Zephys replied. "Perhaps 8 years if your recent breakthrough with emotional resonance continues to accelerate the process." 8 years. Elena would be 58 when she finally returned to Earth, older than she'd hoped, but still young enough to enjoy the life she'd put on hold. The thought sustained her through the long cycles of research and discovery. "There's something else," Zephys continued, its form shifting to what Elena had learned indicated excitement. "The architect you've been trying to reach. We've detected response patterns from the deep void. Your messages are getting through." Elena's heart skipped. For 2 years she'd been using the activated artifacts to send signals into the quantum foam, hoping to contact the architects themselves. If they were still out there, still alive in whatever form they'd chosen, perhaps they could explain why. They'd hidden their knowledge away. "What kind of response?" "Curiosity," Zephys replied. "The same emotional resonance that activates their artifacts. They're watching, Elena. Watching to see what you do with what you've learned." That night, alone in her quarters aboard the research station, Elena stood before the window looking out at the galaxy spread like diamonds on black silk. Somewhere out there, Earth continued its orbit around an ordinary star. Her family went about their lives waiting for her return. And in the void between stars, beings older than human civilization watched to see if their 3-million-year gamble would pay off. Elena pressed her hand against the cool window and whispered to the darkness, "Just a few more years. Wait for me." In response, every architect artifact on the station pulsed once with golden light, a reply that could have been a promise, or perhaps just the echo of hope itself. The long road home stretched ahead, paved with mysteries yet to be solved and questions yet to be asked. But Elena Vasquez, humanity's first student of the architects, had learned to find joy in the journey itself. After all, the best discoveries were always worth waiting for. To be continued. The end.